Scott, as a man, I generally don't know things. Whenever I don't know them, I go to Google, I go to YouTube, I figure it out, and I move on. However, when reading the Bible and I get to something I don't understand, I really struggle to find the word and to find meaning in it. Any suggestions?
Well, Jeremy, it sounds like we both need a life hack for that.
So Scott, I'm reading the Bible, and inevitably I'll have questions about what I'm reading, or I'll struggle to understand what God's purpose in telling me this stuff is.
Yeah.
Any suggestions on how to get past these roadblocks?
Well, this is common, isn't it? When you're reading ancient documents, documents from other cultures and dead languages and from centuries ago, of course we're going to have questions, right? They didn't do the same things that we do now. And one of the best tools that we have available to us is a thing called the Bible Dictionary. And there's one that I'll recommend. I'll put in the link below. It's called the Holman Bible Dictionary. And you can look up anything you want in this. So if you're reading a story in the Gospels about Pharisees, you can look up Pharisees and understand what were these guys all about? What was this all about? Or if you're reading the book of Amos, you can look up Amos and find out who he was and what kind of prophet he was. And then you can see a whole outline of the book of Amos and what the key principles or the key thematic concerns were for the book of Amos.
And that context is so beneficial.
Yeah,
it really does help.
And we're not talking about pages and pages and pages you have to get through. We're talking about paragraphs. These are people who have studied Amos for years, right? They're experts. They're the ones that have to put this concise little thing in this Bible dictionary. And it's so helpful, so incredibly helpful when you begin to come up with questions that you can't answer and go to the Bible dictionary as a source.
Oh, fantastic.
Yep.
Now, speaking of context then, so that's one way to get context. What's another way we can get context on different
Well, there's a book by Fee and Stewart, who two guys that are awesome in terms of translation work. They wrote a series of books, or two books, that were really instrumental. One is How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth. And this is a book that it helps you understand the genre, the big picture of what you're reading. So what is narrative history and how do you read it? It's very different than the way we would describe history in our history books today. And so how do you read biblical narrative theology, and what's their purpose behind it? When it comes to wisdom literature and poems, and when it comes to apocalyptic literature, and when it comes to gospels and letters, all of these things that we intuitively know how to read the genres of our day, or movies, dramas and horror movies and comedies. Yeah. We get all that, but we don't necessarily get the biblical genres because we're not used to them. And so this is a great book to kind of get you into the world of the Bible and how people wrote. Their second companion volume to this was How to Read the Bible Book by Book.
Okay.
And this is basically just that, Genesis. And it will break down all the chapters in Genesis, again, paragraph form, and give you the key concepts and give you a little history on the book and what you should be looking for and how to read it. What are the key signs in Genesis? For Genesis, it's all about family. So there's a thing called the Toledot, which is the generation of. It's the Hebrew generation of. And so whenever you hear that word, or you're not going to hear it, but whenever you see this is the father of Abraham, you realize now we're talking about this lineage, right? And so those are little components, and they're keys to help us understand, we're talking about individual stories here, family stories. And all throughout the Bible, they'll give you these kind of clues that will be helpful in understanding and interpreting what you're reading.
That's great. I mean, especially, we talked earlier about, what it means to put it in bite size, where you have a 7-day study, or maybe you're doing a year-long Bible study.
Right.
And you're going through all the books of the New Testament. Man, these companions seem like a great way to really understand the context of what's going on around the story. And it really helps you get into the Word much more whenever you know kind of what's surrounding the story.
Right, and they're not written to theologians, right? They're written to the common people, and so they're very accessible. They're not huge volumes; they're very small books, and you don't sit and read the whole thing. If you're reading Genesis, which you guys are doing in your men's group,
right.
Shameless plug for the men's group again. Basically, what you do is you look at Genesis and you read the chapters that you're reading for that study, and it gives you pointers and a guidepost to say these are the thoughts that should concern you as you're reading these books.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
I think that's really good. So you're going to put the links in there?
I'll put the links in so you guys can have these tools. But these are 3 tools that I think everybody should have. They're affordable, and even if it costs the Bible dictionary is probably the one that is more expensive, but it's worth it. If you're going to read this for the rest of your life, you might as well know what you're reading, right?
Exactly.
So I think these books really help us make sense of what we're reading on a day-to-day basis.
Well, Scott, we really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think it really does. It's a huge, valuable resource. Like you said, this is a lifelong reading for us. So why not put tools around it to make it more, understandable?
Yeah. So let us know what helps you've encountered over the years, and tell us if there are resources that you have that you've come up with that you feel really good about. We'll spread the word on those as well. Thanks for liking, commenting, and subscribing. We love you guys. We'll see you guys soon.